What is going on, everybody? So good to have you all here on another Saturday night with Ostradamus Toys Live. Not quite Saturday Night Live, but I don't know. We're funny too. We're just not as actiony, skitty oriented. So, joining us all tonight, as we all know, the man, the myth, the legend, we've got Sean Scavarno over here. And then on the far side of him from Eternia is Eldor. And then circling further around clockwise, I'm going to keep leaning down this way. We've got Brick. And then joining us tonight as well, we have the beautiful Curtis Ackerman hanging out with us since Jesse could not make this evening's class. He's got a bit of work to catch up on. How are you guys feeling this evening?
I feel bad for anybody that tuned in to see Jesse and see me instead.
Oh,
but other than that, pretty good.
Come on now.
Hey, Jesse's got the link. If he ends up feeling up to it a little bit later, he can definitely come join us and hang out. I'd love to have him come on tonight.
Yeah, I know he had a busy day today, so I think he was resting up.
Totally understand. You guys got a big day tomorrow too, because you guys got Shooting the Shelf tomorrow night.
Yep,
it's going to be really epic.
There's a lot of stuff going on tomorrow. They got Saturday Day Live is going live tomorrow instead. I guess they got Walter on, and obviously My Wife Is Going to Kill Me is going on in the morning. So busy day of podcast tomorrow.
Sundays are always so busy. Like there is no rest for most of us guys, especially if you watch any of the big channels that we circle in. Sunday is not a day of rest. It's busy.
Bunch of toy collecting heathens.
That's right. That's right.
That's a perfect segue. Well, that's just that all fits into, you just named a bunch of podcasts, and many of whom are often mythic and cosmic centric and or run by folks in the fandom. And tonight, that's our topic, right? Today, we're going to be shifting a little bit. We did some mythic in the beginning. We talked about cosmic. And now we're circling back to the fandom.
That's right. I mean,
an active fandom.
Yeah, nothing goes on like this. Nothing gets built up like this without the fans to support it. I mean, it doesn't take much to become a fan of this. Pretty much everybody I know, I heard it all at the start. Once you get one in hand, that's all it takes. And it's so true. The moment I opened up the Horseman, I was just like, Sean sold my soul to the devil, but I gave it to him very willingly.
Not the devil.
Not quite the devil. Just
to one of these.
One of you start down the dark path, as it were.
Yeah. Right. Once I had that thing in hand, I was like, oh my God, I got to get more of these. And I'm pretty sure everybody here can pretty much say the same thing. Like once they all looked cool from the start, but once you got one in hand, it was just like, okay, yeah, this is it.
It's like that Pringles slogan: once you pop, you can't stop.
You can't stop. You just can't. You might shift and alter your collection to cater to new needs. I know, Curtis, you were talking about that last week on Off Worlds when we were together. You will suit the collection to your needs. So where you start may not be where you end up as your correct collection grows, but you can't stop.
Yep. It's really hard. As I sit here staring at a finally unboxed All Stars All In, and I'm questioning myself, like, what am I doing? But anyway.
Small pleasures. That's exactly small pleasures. Real quick here, let me run down and say hello into the chat. I'm a little out of practice of this. Just did it again on Toy Frenzy this week, but let me jump in. So we've got the man Thanos Copter hanging out in the house with us this evening. Massive Versatile Toy Hunter pulling double duty in the chat and on. We got Nolan here, this shifty bald mother hanging out in the chat. Gotta watch out for this guy. Cobweb Collector joining us this evening, fresh with a new power sword in hand. I can see him now sitting here watching us, going, hanging out with it, playing with it.
Getting a bit of a workout there.
right, hefting the sword aloft. All right. And we've got my buddy Customs in the house hanging out with us this evening. Big sis K Roll joining us this evening. And speaking moistly also here, a little bit of a smaller crowd, but that's kind of, my own fault. This is my first time going live in 3 weeks on my own channel. So I appreciate you guys all coming to hang out with me this evening. It's always a lot of fun.
Indeed.
So as most of these people in the chat are all fans of this line, they've seen the beauty. They've held some of these figures. I think the idea of being a fan just pours through with everything. I mean, the Four Horsemen themselves had to have been fans of certain brands, and that's helped influence their work. And we can see that. Now, they went from fans from when they were young of quite possibly something we're all involved in, Masters of the Universe, and then they got the chance to become the creators of the 2000X line. All of those toys were their designs, their sculpts. As a matter of fact, Eldor went and pulled some work from the Source Horsemen about them working with NECA and bringing the Stactions to life. And I'm going to drop that link in the chat here if anybody is not familiar with it. Hopefully well, it showed up as two different ones because it may have been a bit too long. So I don't know if if the link will work, but we can also kind of add it to stream here. Thank you, Eldor, my brother.
Yeah, just if you're looking at chat, just type it all in.
Right. Just go through, type every little bit of code right there. But, these guys were fans of this. Thank you, Thanos, saying does not. You got to type it in every little bit, all the little letters. Make sure it's case sensitive.
We were talking on Offworld last night before we went live about Thanos Copter, doing reports like we imagine him from a helicopter. So every time I see him make a comment now, I just imagine him like a news reporter in a helicopter. This just in, that link does not work. All right, back to you in the studio.
Perfect, because I'm picturing that old school Thanos costume from when he's in the helicopter. Thanos costume.
Oops.
It's absolutely beautiful to think about. But I mean, yeah, growing up, the guys had to be fans of the amazing toys from Eternia. And then they got a chance to work on them. And I mean,
those are so nice.
Got to think that everybody here would love to work on this brand in some way.
Yeah, I love this section. There's a couple of posts now where they're kind of going back, and the Four Horsemen are going back to kind of list out some of the things that they've worked on over their career.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, these guys are both fans, and I'm sure that it ended up motivating them to even sort of get involved in art in general and then into actual toy making. And so, yeah, and their story with Masters of the Universe as fans to creators is totally, we see that here. We see that later in where they end up going with classics. It's great.
I mean, look at the craziness of that Mosquito figure right down there. He is so much more horrific looking than the Mosquito from our childhood.
Yep.
But that's their unique twist on this. That's where that fandom takes over, and they're like, well, what if we made him look a little like this, or we did a little of this with it instead?
Well, that's like the clawful at the top. You compare that to the Filmation clawful we got that was just like a real goofball, and then you look at this guy up here and he's scary as
monstrous.
heck. Yeah,
absolutely monstrous.
yes.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
want to mess with that Clawful.
Right. And I mean, it goes across the board with pretty much every single one of the characters. Because, I mean, one of the things that we all love about Masters of the Universe is the sometimes quite frequently goofy nature or look of these characters. You know, they're all very kind of outlandish in a way. And so, like, seeing this more serious take, I mean, look at that Rio Blast right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I mean, if you can make Snout Spout look cool, you can do anything.
right, this guy showed up for John Connor, and he's not taking no for an answer.
If you go back up to that Clawful real quick, I was kind of on an unboxing spree last night and finally unboxed this Masterverse
Ooh.
Clawful, and it sort of comes with like additional parts, and I just love how like their designs are still sort of being worked in some way, shape, or form, and influencing newer versions of the character, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like you can see the elements that they brought to this character
Yeah.
continuing in this Masterverse design.
The giant claw and
What I find interesting about the Masterverse line is that they throw all this extra new stuff in there to kind of change up the characters, and everybody that I see that collects the line like doesn't pose them with that stuff. So I'm just like when I see that, I usually am like how much of this stuff is just getting wasted and getting thrown into fodder bins or like
Well,
I don't know.
I mean,
there are some of us who do. I've got
Okay.
mine. There are some of us who do, believe it or not. But no, I hear you. And I love that they gave us the options. But
Yeah, it's cool
Right.
to have that. I like on the Motu boards and stuff. I just don't see a lot of people posting it with the new stuff. It's like typically the older version is what you
Yeah.
see. But
See,
Yes,
that's
to
funny
take the,
for
the
me.
new attorney Beastman, for example. I don't
yeah,
display him with the the big fairy armor on, just as he appeared usually. But yes,
yeah.
Well, that's funny because for me, I really enjoy with New Eternia doing the prototype looks, basically, those concept looks. I actually
Okay.
enjoy the Beastman with all the extra stuff.
Okay.
And part of that is because, again, I just really like, to me, New Eternia was like new grounds. Like this is something new that they're bringing to the table, but it's also not, because we've all seen the old images where those were elements that they were going to use with the characters, and they decided to go a different direction in the end.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I like being able to see that concept of a figure that in some cases, in my mind, was a lot cooler looking be used now. I mean, I certainly like where Beastman went from the giant red bear that he basically originally looked like.
Yeah.
And I like how they didn't just give us a giant red bear. They decided to give us, something a lot better.
Yep.
We're going to give you a bear skin on Beastman, because I totally believe he could have ripped apart a bear.
I like that Randor there down at the bottom. That thing is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, just again, this is the Four Horsemen's work, and I think some of that spirit, right, that they've kind of embodied of like, they clearly love Masters of the Universe, but when given the chance to redesign some of these characters, and of course, some of that was based on working with a TV show and whatever Mattel had planned for the line, they weren't necessarily trying to just copy what had come before, but they were trying to bring it into the era. But they came with this idea of like, we love the old way, but we want to do these new things with it and be creative with it. And so they did it here with 2000X, and then they went on to do it again with Classics. And so fast forward down the line, when they eventually get to Mythic Legions, they built some of that into their toy, right? Where it's like, we are going to create these characters that we love, but we're also going to make pop and swap a thing. We're going to give you army builders, and we're going to sort of allow you and encourage you and embrace the idea of folks changing our stuff up and making it your own. So I think, I think there's something about that approach that put them in this position to create Legions the way that they did, which I think only
Yes.
embraced the fans, right? And kind of just like, hey, come with what you got. You be creative just like us, and let's do this together. So
Exactly. They fully embrace the creative nature of the fans. Because, I mean, again, across the board, you see this with just about everybody who gets into these. There's not a whole lot of people that I see that really just keep their figures basic. You know, even if they're not doing the more heavy customizations, like you said, Brick, they've got that pop and swap ability of it, or as some people call it, that lazy boy custom. And you know what? Like, it really, really does work. You know, it's fun to do that. I mean, that's mostly what I've done here. I haven't gotten into the real, I haven't got my hands dirty with a lot of painting and customizing, but you know, I basically have built myself with, you know, parts that I have, you know, a version of me in toy form that I really like. So that is one of these great things about this toy. And they don't just like embrace it, they put their stamp of approval on it, which is what I like. Because again, you can see in some of these bigger toy companies where they try to turn a blind eye to any customizing that people do. A big part of that is because if they acknowledge these customizations and bring something like that into the line, they have to acknowledge that they saw it and kind of have to pay for it. Those Four Horsemen are like, nah, that's freaking great. You guys did an amazing job. We're going to figure out something and we're going to put that kind of a thing out there.
Well, not only that, but they're constantly adding new modularity to the figures, like, you know, the removable chest plates and the face plates and things like that. And then, you know, not only adding that in for tooling purposes, but then advertising it that, you know, hey, this is something that comes off and here's the port and all this kind of thing, so that it then allows more, you know, third party customs parts to, you know, come out. So I just the collaboration that they have with the third party community is something you don't see in most toy lines.
Yep.
Not at all. And one of the great things about that is, let's go ahead and want to bring up. Well, of course, let's just start with Wolfgang Customs, since you know
They're the best.
Yeah. You know, I'm not playing favoritism out there, but
All right, I'll do it for you.
that's why you're here, Curtis. Yeah, give me just a moment. Brick and I mentioned in the back before we went live, like we should have had all this stuff ready to go, and you know, we were just like, okay, we'll roll with it from here.
Yeah.
But just go ahead and share a screen here.
While you're doing that, you know, again, since we were sort of like, oh, for the newer fans, yeah, there's this since the beginning, really, right? How early would you say? Like, actually, I'll throw it out to the folks who've been around a little more. How early would you say, or I guess, how quickly did the third-party folks start to bubble up once that, say, that Kickstarter dropped and people were getting these figures in hand? How much longer was it before we started seeing more and more folks, like, you know, sculpting and producing stuff?
It's definitely developed over time, but I would say, you know, after the first Legions Con, you really saw a lot of, you know, folks coming up with their own stuff. My Action Figure Customs was one of the first. I know Saba that runs Planetary Dog actually used to do sculpting for My Action Figure Customs. And then, you know, Len was doing a little bit of stuff with Wolf King, had just kind of formed it when, you know, Jeremy had this idea to start doing these critters and things like that. And so they partnered up, and, you know, that really, you know, kind of started off Wolf King. And then Emil got involved and started doing some orcs and some vampires and stuff. And it just kind of went from there. And then, you know, over the years, you have your kind of smaller, like more independent ones, like your Toy Forge with Anthony Hasil and Bits with Chris Ferrone and things like that. And then, you know, time goes even further, and this stuff, you know, like 3D printers become a little bit more accessible and, you know, not as expensive. And Some of the stuff like, people get more used to 3D sculpting, and now you've got folks that are, not even necessarily running a shop, but just kind of doing stuff on their own, maybe selling stuff via PMs or, just a message on Facebook that, hey, I came up with this part, and if you're interested, let me know. So it's definitely changed over, the last several years, going from kind of like, my action figure customs and, first, and then Wolf King and Planetary. And it was kind of like those big three. And now there's just, every Tom, Dick, and Harry is printing up something or selling something. So,
yes, sir. You see, I'm not as advanced as using your 3D computer programs here to model your headpieces or armors or body parts there. But yes, I dabble in the epoxy putties there still. Your Miller putt or Tamiya. Just a bit of a tinfoil ball there, and you sculpt your head forms or what have you there.
Yeah, and I mean, in the early days of, Four Horsemen production, the Gothitropolis, and even I think, some of the first like Mythic Legion waves, they were doing sculpting by hand too. It wasn't ZBrush, and even like I think my action figure customs, a lot of when they first started was, people were doing hand sculpted stuff, and then they would scan them in and go from there. So yeah, this, as technology changes, a lot more people get into it. The one thing I would make sure that I throw out there just for anybody watching, because, seems like every Black Friday, these things get cheaper and cheaper and people get into it. Make sure you do your research. These printers can be very dangerous. You want to make sure you have the right safety precautions. You want to make sure you have the right ventilation, the right hand protection. This stuff, it can be toxic. So, I don't discourage people from getting into the hobby, but just make sure you do your research. So.
Yep.
Completely agree. I years ago, before 3D printers were really popular, we're talking back in, God, it must have been like 2015, 2016. A buddy of mine had picked up a 3D printer, and then he bought another one that was even better than the one that he had. He sent it over to me, and I had the great idea. I was going to start 3D printing some cosplay parts for friends, because I had a bunch of friends within the cosplay community that always complained about material and time to make. Then I realized I got this thing and I had no idea how to 3D model. So I was like, wow, that was kind of silly. But I started downloading some STL files from like Thingiverse and everything like that. Made a really cool set of Wolverine claws and all. But he made sure to let me know, like, look, this is the kind of filament that I use. If you use this filament, now, mind you, I can't remember now which filament was the difference. He goes, this one's less toxic, not as toxic, but you are amazing, Brick. Thank you. Here, I'm gonna go ahead and start grabbing some of these.
Yeah,
there's I was just gonna say, I'm gonna start throwing in because I don't have the power like Cobwebs, so I'm gonna start putting in the URLs into the private chat for some of these things, and it'd be great to just share them with.
You should have the power. I thought you did.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on what you were saying there. So you have filament printers and resin printers, and filament printers are definitely less toxic, but they also leave like lines in the print. So if you're like printing a head or something like that, like you want those details in the face, and that's really hard to get with a filament printer. So just like I said, do your research, and even if you're just buying parts from somebody, if you get a part that is kind of like looks like it's sweating, like it's kind of wet on the outside, or really, like we saw one last year that somebody had posted in the Cabal that they bought a part and it broke and like there was liquid resin pouring out. Do not touch that stuff. Like, get yourself some rubber gloves or whatever. Like that, like that's really bad. So.
So I've popped several of those links down into the chat. And for anybody who's seen, like, again, some of the great things here talking about like Planetary dog toys. This is a person who I haven't spoke to or met personally, but I follow their work because I was amazed. And, then he's going on and sculpting for like 5K Toys, doing the Fury Planets Veteran William customs based off of his very popular werewolf pieces that I've seen quite a few mythic mythic werewolves come from. Sadly, he retired that one before I had a chance to get him. But
yeah, he's actually working with a toy line now to produce those werewolves. So you probably have seen those start to come out. I can't remember the name of the studio right now, but I know they've been
the Fury Planet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So they took basically took that design and said, hey, let's make it its own figure kind of thing. So
yep. And it looks amazing. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the one on there, I don't know if my action figure customs, I'd have to take a look. I know they were having kind of like a going out of business sale. Like they had some stuff super cheap. Like, I mean, stuff as cheap as like $1 on there because they were just trying to blow out the rest of their inventory. So I don't know what they've got left on there, but that one definitely will be going away.
Yeah, just sort of sharing, like, so folks have a sense of like who this community is, right? So check it out. And so as Curtis is pointing out, like MAFC or My Action Figure Customs is sort of moving out of the Legion's business and moving into all things really Savage Crucible. And I think they're still going to be doing some stuff like AWOC, some custom stuff. But keeping in theme with sort of like the thought of tonight's topic, it's like the Horsemen brought with them this like drive to be creative and kind of be fans and, you know, do their take on Masters and then eventually do their take on their own lines, Gothropolis, and then eventually Mythic, then Cosmic. They're just creating, embracing this community and trying to get others to create as well. Now we're seeing folks create these custom parts, and that's what all those links are. And some of them have started creating their own lines and, you know, essentially creating their own business in these, and then creating their own lines. And to me, like, that's what the thinking was about, like, hey, what is it about the Mythic Legions and the Legions fandom in general that makes it like super unique in that? And then how has Mythic Legions and its fandom sort of like have basically changed toy collecting, right? I feel like, you know, they're not by any means the first toy line to inspire people to customize things. But from sort of my vantage point, it seems like they're the first to really like coalesce this group of people that's like sparked this basically cottage industry. And we're only talking about the parts. We haven't talked about like all the other creative pieces, whether it's soft goods or art or like whatever it is.
Photography.
Dios.
It was I know Jeremy tells a story. I think it was last year at Legion's Con or maybe the year before, but he was sitting there with Eric Treadway and they just kind of took a look over like at some point you just, you know, step back and smell the roses. And they were just kind of looking over the room with all the vendors in there. And he said, you know, he told Eric, he's like, you know, look at all these folks that are in here for this line, and several of them, like their primary business, their primary job that they make money with is based on this line that you've created. Like they are now basing their livelihood on this line. And that is very unique in the toy industry for sure.
Well, we all grew up in the day where, you know, again, most of us are all huge Masters of the Universe fans. Mattel went to court, battle after battle after battle, to shut down bootleg Masters of the Universe figures. You know, until finally courts, you know, were like, look, you don't own the rights to a muscular male body.
You don't own this.
You do not own the rights to that. So stop this nonsense. But I mean, that's what we're used to when people try to branch off and are inspired by an idea. And try to create something on their own with it. So,
but the Flares of T line is really cool.
The Flares of T line is amazingly incredible.
Yes, you see a lot of that in the past movies of days gone by. There's say Star Wars in particular. He had many battles with all these other filming studios. I believe Battlestar Galactica. They couldn't use certain shapes of laser bolts there because old George Lucas would be on the heels, so they avoided using, you know, pew laser bolts out of the guns there. They just had a flashing light and so forth. and then you had Space 1999 with the Eagles there, and George Lucas didn't want
Yep.
the Millennium Falcon to look too much like that, so he changed into a sort of a half-eaten hamburger there, and what have you.
That's funny.
But I mean, you know,
I think you know, we're just kind of mentioned Legion Shop a second ago. I think that's a really unique one for those that don't know. Like, that's really run by Jeremy Gerard and Joe Fateri, who put together Legion's Con, and they basically like bring in all these artists from all over and kind of let them, you know, put some stuff on their website, and then they obviously get a part of the profits and stuff. But it's a way for people to kind of get their name out there. And so if you're not one of the big guys, if you're not a Planetary Dog Toys, you're not a Wolf King Customs, but you've got a really cool part, or maybe you are really into painting and you'd like to get some of your work out there, you know, they, you know, work with these newer artists to kind of bring them in and make a name for themselves. And so that's a really cool shop to check out, because you can see all these different sculptors and printers and painters and stuff. And then, you know, to see those folks then branch out and kind of start their own business is really cool.
I agree.
Absolutely. Hey, Oz, would you mind? I'm a visual person, and so we're talking about all these cool things, and like these I can't. I just want to see it. You know, I want to show it. So this is Legion's shop that Curtis was just talking about. And so can you run that down again in terms of like who's involved and their now role, their history, just to as a I think a perfect exemplar of this notion of the fan becoming the creator, and in some cases becoming the creator.
I mean, ultimately, like Jeremy is the best example. Jeremy Gerard. I mean, he was, you know, a huge fan who then started working for the line, obviously co-created Legion's Con with Joe Fateri. And, you know, now he's the full-time, you know, director of sales and marketing. And he's, you know, a lot of the new figures that are coming out, he's either co-creating or mainly creating the bios for. You know, so yeah, I mean, talk about going from fan to, you know, in the inner circle, like that's the main guy.
Yeah, he made it the full way up.
Oh yeah,
which is astounding.
Yeah, he's living the dream job.
Some shows he does there. He likes to do a bit of painting there, so he'll talk.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a customizer too, and so yeah, they created Legion's Con, which happens every year, which is a great event. If you've never been, definitely encourage everybody to go. And then a couple years ago, they came up with this idea for Legion Shop, which was, you know, just a way to kind of house some of these newer artists within one place. So if you go in there, if you go to artist, it shows all the different people that have stuff that have worked with them. And then as you know, if you go to the shop, guys. Yeah. And then as you go to the shop, and then it kind of shows all the different, you know, parts that they have available and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's really cool.
Again, like, you know, people are fans, people become part of, you know, obviously Nate's done a ton.
Well, Nate's worked,
but yeah,
he's worked closely with them since the days of Mattel. You know,
now he's full time with them as well. Like that's his primary job now. So
there's another recognizable face.
Yeah,
quite a team there indeed.
Yeah, and you know, just this is a great place to start. Thanks for mentioning that, Curtis, because like just jump in, look at some of these names. These are people that if you're hanging out and getting more and more into Legions, you're going to hear these names over and over again, and you'll probably recognize them from other, you know, toy lines too. These are like that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, a lot of these
creativity.
Like if you scroll down right there in the middle at the bottom, right there, Brian Almeida. You know, he started out doing some painting for Legion Shop, and next thing you know, like he's creating these massive dios for, you know, Legion's Con, and you know, doing all kinds of different things. You know, I know Stephen Bisciotti was on there. He started out doing some painting, and now he's doing his own sculpting, and he's working for Wolf King. You've got Jeremy Wilson. I think 2 years ago, maybe, like put out a couple heads with Legion Shop, and now he's doing his own thing. And you see posts from him all the time in the Cabal, like selling new cosmic parts and things like that. So yeah, this is an interesting place because it does help a lot of people, get their foot in the door, get some people to know who they are and what their parts are, and then kind of go from there. But you also got some bigger names like Zombie 13 down there. He's been in the game for forever, since Legion started.
Right.
And he was doing original sculpting, kind of like what Eldor was talking about, where you're sculpting by hand and that kind of thing.
And you're using all your tools, your sculpting tools, whatever you can find, really.
Yep, and I think he still primarily does hand sculpting rather than digital sculpting. So
for some people, they just never get the feel of the transference of the media.
Yeah.
If you again, check it out, Legion Shop, go to the artist section, and all the links are here. That they want you to go meet these people and connect with these folks on their sites and their social media. So all the links are there. Like these are all
Detour Customs. Like I think he started with a couple weapons with Legion Shop, and now he's doing his whole thing, and so
this guy,
he's all right.
So one of the great things, Meal.
Meal's a super Meal. Everything he touches turns to gold, man. He can put together videos and sculpting and painting and customs, and
just next level.
These folks, like soft goods, like really, like, and that's the beauty. It's real community driven, and real like artist driven. So, being artists themselves running the studio, they're working with other artists and very super artist friendly and supportive. I was talking with Nate about that, just sort of like, him talking about it being his sort of dream gig and how they encourage you to actively go out and do other things, right, outside of the studio. They get it. And they seem to so far be doing just a great job of like, it's almost like, I don't know. It's like back in the day of those sort of like artist movements and like, the Four Horsemen school, if you will, right? Like this, like creating this community. And,
we've spoke many a times about, there are great periods in art. And one of the greatest periods of all time in art is the Renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
And Brick, you and I have spoken several times amongst others about there being this big toy renaissance right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really starting to see again these great works of art in a lot of ways. Because when I pick these up, just the base figures are, in my mind, a work of art. Is a sculpture. It has been finely detailed to a quality beyond what you would expect to go into just a toy. This is that statue kind of level, but they've worked in amazing articulation so that it still stays very toyetic. And that's one of the best things that I like about Mythic Legions. So now they have, given the tools out to all these other artists, and they're like, let's go ahead and see what everybody else has.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what's created this renaissance. And it's also even helped beyond just Mythic Legions itself. It has inspired others to go into this type of business because they've seen that it can be done.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna, as we're talking, just sort of cycle through some of these sites. Again, this was MAFC, or My Action Figure Customs, that we were talking about earlier. You can see if you're just there, they are trying to just clearance out all the Legions related stuff. There's still some stuff here.
Once they're gone, they're gone. So if you see something you want, jump in and grab it.
And again, we kind of glossed over, or we didn't gloss over, but it was quick. But the folks behind MAFC are now like in a pretty busy in another endeavor, right? With Savage Crucible, which is a line that started, again, we didn't get into this yet, but very similarly to the way that Legion started, which was through a Kickstarter, right? And we're going to be getting those figures soon. And here's a giant butthole.
This, by the way.
Oh, the
I
tardigrade.
love the fact that we've got a tardigrade. Like,
So this is Wolf King Customs, right? Now, like, of course, Mythic Legions, but since now we're moving into the era of Cosmic, which we talked about last class, we're getting custom parts for that. And yeah, this stuff is just so inspiring to me to sort of see this become a reality, right? Of just like, again, these fans doing things. They love this medium, if you will, this toy so much that they're creating stuff. I'm not doing anything, it's just flipping out. And whoa. And they are making this stuff available for all of us, right? Some of this stuff you buy painted, right? Like this awesome one here, painted by David Williams, or you buy them unpainted and you try your hand at it. And I think that's, I don't know. There's just so much as sort of like an artist in me, as an educator who loves to encourage other people to just try things. And you know, I'm so in love
for example, I do rather like the sculpted form that most of these people are getting on the dwarf head sculpts there. So I took the figure obscura, part of the Christmas head, and I sculpted some bandings there.
That came out good.
A little bit of the moustache, and then I sculpted the bands on, and a few locks of hair coming out from those, and I feel I did rather well with that. But nowhere near as elaborate as most of the crisscrossing patterns you are getting in most of these works of art there.
Yeah, and I put another link in the chat there that kind of goes along with Wolf King.
Love it.
Because
I like your segue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, like one of the big things that's really driven Wolf King over the past several years is the God's Fire series, which is, you know, mostly Emil and Steven kind of collaborating. If you scroll down there, it actually goes through like their characters and stuff. You've actually got some audio there where you could listen to Emil tell the stories of these characters. Or you can scroll down even further and you can click, like they have the characters themselves, and you can click and read these little bios. So the thing that really, before I was actually working with Wolf King Customs, the thing that really drew me to them as a studio was that they had these fleshed out characters. So you would click on somebody, like you would click on the Believer there, and it's going to tell you a story about who the Believer is. It's not just a part, but he has like a whole story. And so then as a creator, as somebody that is a painter, like I want to put together a figure that puts that story together, you know? So you've got like this is like the back of the old, you know, cards where it had like the different, your strength, your wisdom, all that kind of stuff. So you can see, you know, what this character is. And then, you know, you go down and it's got the actual story of who he is. So, you know, to me, that's just something that was unique in this world, you know, or in this, you know, mythic world, you know, because it's not just a 3D part. Like it is a character, it is a story. And it's interesting because you'll see, like, I'll put out my Believer and it looks completely different than Emil's or completely different than Luis Torres, but they're all cool. Like, and you can see where parts of the story are incorporated into the character. So
yeah, this is essentially like fans adding to the world, right? And
yeah, it's like fan fiction stories or whatever. Yeah,
but realized in plastic form, if you so desire.
See, I've only worked on 2 Mythic Legions customs so far. And my second one, I thought I'd make a bit of a story up of them. That was the Father Christmas head that I sculpted to put on my dwarf body there. So I made a little story up to go with that one. So it's a fun thing you can do there, indeed.
Yeah.
So cool. Very, very cool.
You know,
let's see. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I really love that they have this kind of laid out similarly to how if you go to the Source Horseman and they have their little, you know, here you go. Here's all the figures like in this wave, and you click on them, you look at their bios, or you can break them down by faction and like here are all the figures in this faction. It's I love how the community is just like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and add that with the way we're going to roll out these figures. We've made these and we're going to use a similar way of presenting it. So it just feels like it's included as part of the overall series, even though, again, this is essentially just fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Just gonna bounce around to some of the other ones.
Right.
Well, and then, we've been mostly talking about, 3D printers, but, you do see a lot of folks that are doing dios, that are doing
Yes.
soft goods, that are doing photography,
God,
and then just the folks that are doing content, on social media, like these shows. I've seen so
Yes.
many people join the line as fans, and next thing you know, they're running their own Legions podcast,
Yep.
Seeing Jesse like jump into the line and go from like this guy that's brand new to he's got his own show, and he's on a couple times a week talking about Legions, and it's just really cool. I know Jeremy's talked about like kind of the passing of the torch from the old folks that were in the line to the newer folks that are taking it and running with it and putting out new content and stuff. So really cool.
Yeah, and it's totally present everywhere. I mean, I remember when I was first starting to get into these, that into learning more about Mythic Legions. Once I'd seen about the Kickstarter years ago, and just had to admire it from afar. Couldn't really invest. And as time went on, it's like still admired it. Seen a couple things in a few different toy groups. But having gotten into figure collecting and finding out about the Cabal and everything, it's amazing. And if you guys don't know what the Cabal is and you're watching this stream, I'd be kind of surprised at this point if you haven't looked for it and figured it out. It's a giant community on Facebook where tons of Legions fans all get together. And
I think I might be in there somewhere too. He did 3 heads for me as well. That's a stellar looking guy.
Absolutely love this. Just love this.
You too can be a part of Mythos. That's what I mean. It's like just the that's what it does, right? It just encourages you to like.
Well, it's interesting because when I got into the line, there was really only one show for Legion, which was Jeremy's show on Wednesday. And now it's like every day of the week there's something. You got on Mondays, obviously you got Trevor and Nate. Tuesday you got the Legion Blair guy. Then Wednesday you got Jeremy's show. Thursday I know Jesse's doing his thing. Friday a lot of times we're on doing stuff on Off World. You guys are doing stuff on Saturday. There's also the Saturday Day Live guys. And then Sunday, me and Jesse. So it's like every day of the week, there's something Legions going on every week.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm just going to cycle through it since you're there. Absolutely. That's what tonight's about, right? It's just like look at what has come out of this toy line community, right? And of course, like there's a chance that some of this might have happened outside of it. People might have been creating shows about Marvel Legends and so on, but like here's Legions Lounge, like one of my favorite things to watch.
The funny thing about Legions Lounge too, it started out, it was just like Trevor was going live on Instagram. I think it was called like Mythic Monday or something, and he was just going live on Instagram, and whoever joined would join. And then they eventually were like, hey, why don't we just make this a YouTube show? It went on for like 3 or 4 weeks on Instagram, and then it transferred to YouTube, and then it's been running since. So
And again, if you don't recognize any of these channels right here, where have you been?
And then of course, again, this is how I figured it out, right? So I started getting into it was just watching streams, doing some research, and like getting to know stuff. And this channel in particular, and Jeremy's thing of just like even getting into customs and some of this sort of like what is Mythic Legions about, and what is a 1.0 versus a 2.0? Just so much great information here.
Yeah, I mean he's very instrumental with the studio now, so he doesn't do as much customizing, but I think under his playlist there, like he's got a whole bunch of shorts on like how to dry brush, how to paint the details, how to make this and that. Like there's a lot of really good painting tips. And there's some of the ones that I really used when I was first getting started. So yeah, I mean, definitely a wealth of knowledge on this page here.
Yes, I started our own New Zealand Mythic Legions group there, so I've linked many of his tutorial videos there in some of our pinned sections there.
One of the funny things about me is that I found a lot of people's channels from actually looking up custom stuff. I've wanted to do customs for a very long time. You know, I wanted to do custom play sets. I've talked often about wanting to build. I have several NECA Alien and Predators that I've always wanted to make a huge hive diorama. And so, like, looking up custom play sets. That's where I ended up finding Skelevator's channel. I was like, okay, this is years after I hadn't gone ahead and done that yet. But I was looking at ways to customize a Castle Grayskull or customize a Snake Mountain. And then I found Skelevator's channel with him doing that, the first huge custom Snake Mountain, when he had videos posted of that. Like, he didn't do the whole process, but, he went ahead and he had the videos after the fact of it and stuff. And it was really, really great. So, like, watching many of Jeremy's videos before I was really, again, into Mythic Legions, because when you look up custom figure tips and stuff like that, like how to do things, you will find it. You will see his channel come up because a lot of people go there for tips.
Yeah, and I just threw another one in the private chat, but Jeremy actually has his own website for his customs. Now, he hasn't updated it in a while, but like when I was first getting started, I know a lot of people like Eric LeBron, I think, really started going there, which is mythiccustoms.com. And what Jeremy was doing right from the start was he was making these really cool characters, and then he would show you how he made it. He would tell you what powder pieces he used, what kind of paints he used, how he did it. So it was like, if you liked this custom that he did, here's the recipe on how to make it, and I think that was just really cool.
Can you go back up to that Angel of Death? The first one there.
This one? Right here.
Angel of Death, right below it. There you go. Click on that. I love how I get like very Eric Draven, the first Crow vibes from this one.
Can't rain all the time.
Yep.
I love this one though.
It can't rain all the time.
It's one of my favorite movies. And I love like the black wings and everything like that. You just get those feels from him.
Yeah, I love sort of looking through these and just seeing some of the classics heads kind of working their way in here.
Well, the second Angel of Death right next to the Eric Draven looking one too. One of the things I like about that is anybody who's familiar with the game Darksiders, like this is just death of the four horsemen of the apocalypse in the Darksiders world is what this looks like, which absolutely outstanding, by the way.
That's coming up a lot this week. That's the Joe Madureira, right? Joe Mad?
Yes.
Yeah. On that page, like towards the very bottom, he's got what I think is my favorite custom of all time. And I've been trying to get it from years, but down towards the very bottom there, it's called the Voodoo Queen. And
Voodoo.
He's bringing her to Legion's Con, I think, for the first time this year. And I'm going to desperately try to get that from him. Like this thing it's just stellar. I love this thing. Yeah. So I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that does not go back home with him.
So Marie LeBeau.
Yeah, this thing is just gorgeous.
Yeah, it really is fantastic.
The funny thing about I would, if anybody's just now getting into customizing Mythic Legions, this is probably not a good site for you to go to, because some of the fodder that he used on some of these pieces, and even some of the mythic parts that he used, like he's got heads from characters that are like $400 or $500 now, and that he just like popped off and used in a certain way, or fodder from figures that are going to cost you a couple hundred just for the fodder. So probably not the best one to start with, just FYI.
You just kind of hang on and wait for it to come back around. Hopefully.
Again, I love the continuity of like using these Four Horsemen designed Masters Universe Classics heads. And
I was gonna say, you got your Vicor there. Oh yes, go down to this one.
I think he's got one that he used some parts from Drago Man and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely seen some Drago Man in there, some Calmarzo. This is one of my all-time favorites.
That's cool,
if you are Legacy of, where did I think we lost Sean for a moment. Hopefully he will be back.
Legacy of Kane.
Yes.
Yes, I think my net's been playing up there too a little. So.
The internet gods are not with us tonight. Yeah, and again, this is a fan, a customizer, creating characters, writing stories, creating these these bios, and then fast forward, and now he's doing it officially.
Yeah, a lot of these were before he was even working with the studio at all, and then the rest are ones when he was working for him part-time. So,
right,
yeah.
If we were being cryptic or confusing, that's again Jeremy Gerard, marketing director. Is that the title?
Master of Director of Sales and Marketing. Yeah,
marketing god.
That succubus right there. I believe that used wings from Drago Man.
Drago Man, for sure. Those beautiful wings, Drago Man, Granomir wings.
And so when we say from fans to creators, like we showed people creating things to sell, but even if you're just doing this as your hobby, you are being creative, and you are like, developing a new art form, a new hobby for yourself. Like that's what's up.
It's just a little different way of playing than what we were used to as kids,
Which I will say, I've said this before. I think I said it on our first class. It's an interesting, I guess, I don't know, like intersection of fans that Mythic Legions sort of has brought together, because there's definitely that sort of like person who was really into fantasy miniatures, right? Painting and customizing those little pieces of metal that clearly like there's a through line to people seeing these figures and be like, oh, I want to now do that in 7-inch or 6.5-inch form. Of course, it's still got the fantasy vibe, but now they're bigger, and I see a lot of those folks even in sort of the paints, right? Like what are folks using? Citadel.
Citadel paints,
right.
People use a lot. I mean, there's some people
I tried a bit of Citadel there the other day, in fact.
Yeah, some people are straight Vallejo, some people are Citadel. I use a lot of SoFlat, which is a brand that they recommended from the studio. They use a lot at the studios called SoFlat paints.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get similar looks. It's just really whatever you're comfortable with. So.
Right. I was just bringing that up because that's what those things were, right? Those were paint companies that made like that was coming up from miniatures, right?
Yeah.
And so I see that sort of like that spirit, because when I was playing with action figures in the 80s and collecting them in the 90s, we collected them, and maybe some people were doing customizers. I remember Wizard Comics, right? There was always sort of like those photos of people customizing.
Yes.
But it wasn't necessarily like the folks that I knew that were really like in their basements or rooms doing miniatures. And I just feel like I see more and more as I talk to people, meet people in the Mythics community, like you hear their backgrounds, and there's a lot of those folks, right? Role-playing game folks, D&D folks, photographers, right? So
I was going to say, perfectly aptly timed there. Trevor, thank you for being here tonight, man.
Yeah. So
it's just like I said, it's all different styles of play. I mean, when we were kids, we made up these stories and we bash the figures against each other and stuff like that. And then, you grow a little bit older and you like pose them in certain positions and put them on display on your dresser or whatever.
Yep.
And then, you get a little bit further and maybe you appreciate the box art, or you just, maybe you start doing photography and you like, setting them up in a certain way. And customizing and painting and popping and swapping. It's just another method of play. And as long as you're having fun with these things, that's the main goal.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, today we've been talking about fans, right? And the fandom of that Mythic Legions has sort of like has mushroomed and blossomed. So let's talk about this. What's this about?
This is Walter.
Oh, hey, let's not look at my private messages there.
Right. Get that off of there. We're not putting those out there. Hi,
Hey, Adam.
For your eyes only there. So.
But this is the Cabal. If you are into collecting legions, this is a group that you need to come be a part of and see this is one of the few reasons that I even still have a Facebook, because
same.
Many of you all know I'm basically only on IG. I very rarely check my Facebook.
Look at that new one coming from Emil. I love that head so much.
Right. And it's again showing that stretch from being just with the fantasy and in Mythic Legions to Cosmic Legions, all the new crazy stuff that's going on there. I mean, look at that. Look at that. So you guys can definitely check out the Cabal. It is one of the best communities I've ever been a part of. And everybody is so upbeat, so positive. Everybody's so supportive of things. Look at that. How did I not see that?
What you're seeing is people sharing their customs, their jokes, right? Is sort of sharing, taking the sloghead from Cosmic and
Iz was having some fun today.
Just amazing. Just amazing. I think I found him in a poke bowl that I ate earlier today.
That's a neck piece, right?
Yeah.
There's a hat. There's that head. Yeah.
Right.
And so people share their customs, people share stories, people share artwork, right? And I know Sean's not here anymore, but Sean has played a particular role in supporting some of the sharing of art of Mythic Legion related artwork.
Yeah, and a lot of drawings and stuff like that.
Yep.
It's been a while since I posted in there, but I got a couple of customs.
Wait, what is that?
I was just gonna say, what did I just happen upon?
Okay.
Yeah, somebody found a Monkey King at a bookstore.
Well, I mean, they priced it accurately, but
yeah.
Love this here. Absolutely love this. So that's like the NECA gremlin spider body with this. Oh man, so get the vibes from Doctor Who with this one.
Yes, the Empress of Rankos there. I've seen a few use that one.
Thank you. I just love it.
I've got one of those spider gremlins for this exact purpose.
I wanted to buy it for my
in fact,
web
I've
store.
seen many use the Empress figure for making that custom gremlin there you see in the second film.
So again, this is like where this is the Cabal, the Mythic Legions Cabal, and since we now have Cosmic Legions, there of course is now a Cosmic Legions Cabal
as well.
Shout out to Raptor.
Cabal as well.
I was gonna say, it's not just all about that. We get some G.I. Joe customs in here.
Yep. So how did this start? And that'll be our segue.
There too, indeed.
Yep.
So back in the day, there were these. I guess like message boards, and there was a Mythic Legion message board like way back, and a lot of the early folks in the community, your Jeremy Gerards, Dennis Derby's, Zombie 13, Nikki Nicole Cheney, like they were part of those old message boards, and then at some point Walter created this group on Facebook, and it was just a much easier way for everybody to, share pictures of what they're doing, communicate, things like that. And, as time went on, it actually, the studio recognized it as the official fan group of the studio.
Right.
So, it kind of gave it a little bit more cred to it. And then they actually announced that Walter was the, was a chief ambassador for Mythic Legion. So, it's just really cool to see, from where it started to where it is. And it is a very welcoming community. Obviously, it's got nearly 5,000 members at this point, and any community that size is going to have some people that are going to cause trouble. But for the most part, it's just a lot of shared artwork and love for the line, and just a lot of great people. And Legions Con is a very small microcosm of what this community is. But when you get there, it's like everybody's just great. Like there are no jerks in that room. Like it's just a bunch of really cool people, and that's kind of what the feeling that you get from being in the Cabal. So
Yeah.
Yep. So this is a photo of so we're talking about Walter Hagen, who started the Cabal, and obviously that's blown up. We mentioned this earlier, right? That oftentimes the Four Horsemen will do tribute figures, right? I don't know, is tribute figure, what's the word?
Yeah, it's a tribute
This
figure.
is a tribute figure.
So for fans, right? And so in this case, Walter is now a figure in the form of, and this was just announced a couple days ago.
Yep.
Walter the Mad.
Love this figure.
And so this was announced first. And again, this is, and you'll see here, he's flying the banner of, this is the logo of the Mythic Legion's Cabal. So this is the tribute to Walter Hagen, now Walter the Mad. And again, thinking about who he is as a person, bringing him and creating sort of this tribute character, not unlike the ones we were looking at earlier, right? So folks are creating God's Fire, Four Horsemen are creating characters like this that aren't necessarily like hardwired and truly canon, but it's them playing within the world as well. Because Walter's a fan of skeletons, right? Well, they made him a skeleton, and he's carrying the banner of the Cabal. And this was that first announcement, right? And then was it the next day that we saw the rest of this?
No, they showed them both on the show.
Was it the same? Okay.
Yeah. And it does have that little T-shirt there for those that have been to any, Mythic Legion events. You probably have seen Walter handing out the Cabal T-shirts. In the past, those have all been printed by Len LaGuardia from Wolf King Customs. I know recently Dave Orkin has also started printing some of those as well. But that's just a thing that at events you're used to seeing Walter handing out those shirts. So it was a nice touch, them throwing that little shirt in there as an exclusive for Legions Con with that figure.
I also love the fact that we have that Cabal flask. You may recognize the parts usage here. Yeah, getting some reuse of that beautiful gourd.
Which, Walter has one like that Anthony Halcyon made up for him. So that's kind of where that came from. So, yeah, that was a really good reuse of parts from the Monkey King.
Yep, already seeing it. I love that his bag has the scroll underneath of it, too.
Man, these photos again, Trevor. Jesus.
I was going to say, it's all thanks to 1-6-shooter Trevor right here. Like, I love this part right here. So can I also just say I'm a fan of the fact that T-shirts exist in Mythos? Like, that's the thing. Like, you got your tunics, all like that, and T-shirts definitely exist now.
Yeah, we're still waiting to hear about halter tops, but T-shirts definitely exist. We don't know about wife beaters yet. So
No.
Oh, okay. And so let me have the quickest way to get here. So that we then learned was a 2-pack. And so actually I don't think it's down here.
No, it's down. It was there.
It was down. Second.
Oh, it was down?
row.
It was down.
Yeah,
Sorry.
second row from the bottom all the way to the right.
There you go. And so it's a 2-pack, right? So now we've
Right.
got Cosmic Legions, and I love this too. This little
2
detail we
full
saw the.
figures.
This is Walter the Mad, but in the in Cosmerium, right? So the logo. This is essentially the same Cabal logo, but the original Cabal logo for was the space here was the map of Mythos, and so now we have the rings of Cosmerium, which we went over in the last class. Just very, very cool.
Yes.
But anyway, so they took that naturally, and since the other dude had the banner,
So they gave him
when
a riot shield.
look at that, man.
This is gorgeous. Like there is, man, I
and
love
that
it.
that shield comes with another character in the second wave of
Yep.
Cosmic Legion. But yeah, to see it repainted here for this is really cool.
It's just perfect. And you see the good use of the extra ports and stuff of the body with a little bit of the plugins. And I think one of the other characters has it too. But one of the things I loved is it's got the little like holographic nice point out, Brick, by the way. Your screens on the back are so finely apt for whatever we are presenting. But like you get this little holograph of the planets and Cosmerium that pops up from his wrist gauntlet, and I love that little add-on piece.
Yeah, it's like the little rings or something. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I like the at this point, like personally, I'm just over Skellies. Like I'm just done. so I like the just the
Your
orange
Necronominus.
Sentry with the orange head. I'm going to be looking for trading partners to, that want the Skellies and to trade me their red Sentry, and I'll give them all the Skelly parts and the T-shirt and all that other kind of cool stuff. Yeah, because I just want these guys. Like this is basically the Tusk Sentry body,
Yeah.
but with all new paint apps, and instead of being one solid color, you get that orange, red, and black, and it's just
pops.
So cool. Oh, it's so good.
I could see adding like some purple highlights instead of the red, getting such a different look out of this.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm just building out the Tusk, the Sentries and Science Officers as like an army, and these guys are gonna fit right in. I'll make them like my paratroopers or ARC troopers or something. I don't know. So,
and once again, keeping in mind the person that they're paying tribute to, this photo here of him, Walter apparently is a gardener, right? By trade, working landscape work, and I love this.
I agree. I absolutely agree. It's a beautiful tribute to an amazing person within this community. But again, that just goes and shows the community that surrounds the Four Horsemen and all of their legions is, it attracts a certain type of person.
Yep. So I mean, I think that's
and it is an amazing tribute, but at the end of the day, like I want the toy. I want the orange and black and red toy. Give me that.
Well, and you absolutely will be getting it.
Yeah.
Right. It will be coming.
But there is Cosmic Cabal as well. And I've even seen they've started the Figure Obscura Cabal.
Yep.
Which, of course, that is the, it's funny. I think that's the one with the least amount of figures in it. But, it's every single one of these lines is magnificent in its own ways.
Well, the thing is that, we talked about, this whole show has been really like fans to creators. And the thing is that Eric Treadway really loves this stuff. Like, and you can tell there's a lot of passion that goes into this stuff. He was on the Legion's Lounge last week, and he was talking about Figure Obscura and kind of what went into it, and you could tell like he just really cares about creating this stuff and putting out really cool toys. I know he has a strong passion for Cosmic Legions, and you just see that in the work. Like these guys, they love toys as much as we do, and they want to put out cool stuff.
Yeah.
I agree. Somebody said if you work within your passion, you're never really working, but I don't always agree with that. I mean, I certainly get the idea. I get where that's coming from. It doesn't feel maybe as much like work, but I feel that when you work within your passions, you work harder because you want to see it succeed. You need to see it succeed so that you embrace those dreams. I mean, again, fans to creators, Matthew Rodriguez, just recently with Defenders of Eden, Armies of Ashmore, he was busting his butt every single day, pushing that Kickstarter to the max to get it off the ground, trying to get on and the best part is he's trying to get on as many shows, as many different YouTubers, because I mean that's really the realm of where this stuff goes anymore. You don't see even paid advertisements like they used to. It's now really up to us to keep spreading the word about it. And when you are passionate about something, it makes the work easier, but it's still work. You just get more reward.
I know, like I'm friends with Jeremy, and I feel very happy for him that he gets to do the job that he does. Like, I know it's like his dream job, but at the same time, with that comes like he's always working. Like, there's not a time that he's not working. He's constantly answering questions from people. He's getting PMs all the time. They had when they did the reveal of the All-Stars wave, and there was some issues with the horse and stuff, and that was on a Friday night that they dealt with that. Come Saturday, when the studio is closed, like, they're redesigning that horse on Saturday, on their day off, I guess, and completely redesign that horse with the armor piece and all this and that, and put that information out there same day. They didn't just say, oh, well, we see some people are upset, we'll address it on Monday. There's no day off. Like, these guys are always working. So, you're right. I love the fact that these guys get to do what they love to do, but it is still a job. It is still work, and they're putting a lot into it. So, try to take it a little easy on them. If if Trevor puts out a picture and you feel it's got a little bit of a blue tint to it, don't beat him over the coals for it. Like, just
not at all. That's a touch of Trevor in the picture, man.
Let
it be.
No, I'm glad you said that, and it's hard, Curtis, because like that's not just Mythic Legions, right? I think toy collectors, there seems to be a group of folks who have a hard time not being upset, and then I think it's just the internet. But just to illustrate that, I was listening to Jeremy on, I think it was Mythic Customs, talking about, there's a question in the chat, any updates on the book? And he's saying, hey, I'm going to be on vacation and we're going to the beach, and my thing is I like to wake up early, right? You know where I'm going. And he says, I'm going to wake up early, I'm going to walk to the beach, sit in a chair, and I'm going to write. Like, this is, so I'm on vacation on the beach,
right?
And I'm gonna write the Mythic Legions book.
He's still working.
It's a labor of love. It's still labor, I mean, to your point, like, constantly working. Bright side, you're working on something you love, and clearly, like, it shows through in the work. But yeah, man, I think tonight was this lesson plan, if you will. Yeah, it's hard to talk about Mythic Legions and just talk about the toys, right? Because it really is so much more than that, and we're starting to delve into today. Consider today the intro, the overview of the fandom, because we could easily spend another lesson just like looking at some of these folks that we brought up today. We didn't, some of the artists
we've scratched,
maybe bring them on the channel,
barely, exactly. we've always said from the start with this that eventually the class would delve into like the first beginning. All of this past semester of Legion's class, you can consider it, was just the intro. That's why we were learning about all that stuff. Today is really the first step into getting us prepped to dive in further, because if this were one of those iceberg videos, we're dipping our toes into the surface with this one. There's a lot more to dive into from here, and where it branches off and where it goes from here. How many things have been inspired and spawned off of what the Four Horsemen are doing? But that's all for classes in the future.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Curtis. You were gonna.
I was just gonna say, like, for anybody watching this that, you know, has ever wanted to do any of this stuff, just start. Like, don't worry about like, hey, I'll never be as good a painter as this person, or I'll never be able to do this or that. Just start. If you want to do dios, go grab some foam from the hardware store. It's not that expensive. Cut it up, rough it up, put a aluminum foil ball on it, and see what you can create. If you want to paint, grab something that you can dry brush easily and get some work done on. If you want to get into photography, just, try, like, get started, do some research, ask questions. If you want to start a show, you want to talk about this stuff, like, just do it. Like, get out there, do it. Don't be afraid. Nothing bad's going to happen by trying. So
Not at all. Nothing bad.
Yes,
can come.
I've been inspired a lot by the customs that I've seen. As we know, Mythic Legions is far more than just collecting the different characters there. You can create your own, and I was also inspired by a lot of the tributes there. So we've mentioned Emil. He's done the Transformers, and I believe the Avengers there. And I've got a little share screen there set up there. Also, one of my first tributes I'm going to attempt of the Hudson there from Gargoyles. So I'm mashing two characters there together to create this one.
You saying you put it in the sharing in the present screen?
Yes. Is it there?
Do you have that
also?
Yes, I do see it.
So yes, and this is just a bit of a dry run there, if
Very
you will,
cool.
just to see how the different parts go together. But I might be removing his side skirts there. And this is kid bashing between the Urwit figure and, of course, the Varg.
Right.
His wings there in the main body. So, yes, I've mixed two of the leg parts there. So I've got the Urwit thighs with the Varg lower parts of the legs there. And, yes, of course, I have to do a bit of painting up there to make them look more like the character from the Gargoyles show there.
That's cool.
Yes,
Saw a little bad to the bone there.
He's just yes, yes, sharing another fellow's work he's doing. But yes, he's just a little play around pose there and what have you. So yes, this will be, of course, as I said, my first tribute custom there to Hudson from Gargoyle. So
yeah, looks
there's
cool.
many things you can play around, many different franchises you can pull in. As we know, the Four Horsemen have done tributes so far of Masters of the Universe.
Yeah,
I see they're bringing that into Cosmic Legions a little now as well.
Well, there's a lot of those figures that they could want to do a tribute to that don't necessarily fit with Mythic Legions, that fit more in that cosmic element. So we're certainly getting to see that now and love it.
Thanos Copter made a really good point too about, like, you may not even have to buy foam. There's a lot of, like, stuff waiting to be repurposed. I know Brian Almeida, when he does some of his videos for dio making, he repurposes a lot of things. Like there's a lot of, like, paper towel rolls and things like that are just laying around the house that you just kind of reuse. So like I said, just get started. Nothing bad's going to happen by starting. If anything,
or before you throw out, your boxes there, you can cut up the plastic windows there to make your stained glass windows.
Yep.
And whatever. Goes back into your products and listen to the environment there.
All kinds of different ways to repurpose what you already have sitting around you.
Yep.
You know, I mean, heck, we all open up our toys, and how many of us have saved some of those cardboard inserts in the back of the cards? I know I've got a couple. One of the best ideas. One of the best ideas I had for the alien hive that I was talking about, as far as making it a dio. You know, in the movie, they seem to sink into the walls. You know what a cool part about that preformed blister pack that comes with all those figures is?
Sure. Yeah.
It's already molded.
Nice.
Very cleverly. Yeah.
Well, guys, I'm thinking this would be a great place to go ahead and wrap the show up for this evening. However, for those of you who are Patreon subscribers, I'll be going ahead and running a Patriot private stream starting in the next 15 minutes right after this, because it's going to take me a little bit of time to get that set up.
Good.
I will be dropping that link in the patron chat. And as well as any of my co-hosts here, you guys are welcome to join along. Curtis, I know you and Eldor may not be part of the frenzied Patreon, but you guys are
I've got
all...
my writing cut out for me.
That's true. You were saying you did have a little something extra to do after this. But, you know, Curtis, you are welcome to tag along as well. I'll drop you the StreamYard invite, and we can continue more of different type of conversation, have some fun unboxing some stuff. I know, Brick, you've got quite the pile you're sitting on over there. I got some stuff over here I could probably do. So, well, guys, I say that about wraps it up, and I'll see those Patreon exclusives. Also, if you're wondering how you could join that Patreon, check out my link tree. You can certainly sign up there, as well as if you sign up for Bobby's on Vintage Motu or Skelevators or Battle Ram blogs, join any one of those Patreons, and you can get in on the Frenzied and our exclusive Patreon after show. So, guys, we'll see you all in the next few minutes. Thank you for dropping by for tonight's class. Wow, I'm thinking about recycling trash too much. All right, folks. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, folks.